It's nice to meet you.
You too, you too. Thank you for doing this project for
Sure.
us at TWB and the world.
Yeah, it's been fun. Um, so I just have a couple of questions for you. It
Okay,
shouldn't take too long at all.
no
Um,
problem.
so to start off, how has Theater Without Borders impacted your life and your work?
Okay. So just let you know, I stopped doing theater maybe about 10, 11 years ago with my company, and I'm writing now. I write mostly science fiction. I've written some science fiction plays, but I first met Roberta years ago with my theater company. I taught theater at CUNY City University of New York for many, many years, and I wanted to start doing some international work. So she and Daniel Banks and Martha Cornier were giving a talk over at New Dramatists about how to get involved with, international theater work. For years, since '89, I've been doing theater working with immigrants here with my theater company. So I've sort of been doing international theater in reverse. So I'm working with people who are either children of immigrants, or descendants like myself, or new immigrants, like some of the members of Theater Without Borders. Katrine did a play with me, for example, Saviana. So I was working with people from all over the world anyway. So, Roberta turned me on to some places like the Fulbright and U.S. Cultural Affairs. So I ended up getting senior specialists like Roberta residencies in Romania and Brno in Czechoslovakia, well, Czechia now. And then I ended up going to Slovakia on a U.S. Cultural Embassy group. And sort of the idea of that I was on a panel with the Fulbright people for international people with education grants, Fulbrights, and then the residencies also. So I did a lot of paneling with it. So basically, Theater Without Borders got me in the door in my head to do all of these things. And then working with people here in Theater Without Borders, like at the event at La Mama and other projects. Because of them, I got to know Martha Cornier a little better, also through the League of Professional Theater Women. I ended up at the Prague Quadrennial talking, so all of these things in my own life personally happened. I ended up working with people at the Martin Siegel Theater Center, which I actually turned Roberta and TWB on. They eventually did events, creating a whole series of plays by and about immigrants at the Martin Siegel. So with people from all over the world, like we brought in some people from Romania, which ended up with me directing a play with the play company, working with an actor like John Boyd, who's now got a big role in FBI on TV. So I ended up working with amazing people. I ended up having the opportunity to give chances to other artists, both immigrant and born here, to direct and work on plays. I ended up with people, what I guess you'd call cross-cultural casting. So I did series of plays from Eastern Europe, with the Czech Center, the embassies of Bulgaria and Slovakia and Romania, and one other Eastern Europe, Hungary. So we ended up doing all these plays, but we brought in actors, especially people of color, to work on these plays. So for me, it was just it enhanced and expanded my mission of sort of making theater, international theater, and America's, United States' multicultural, diverse population able to sort of meet each other in different ways. Um, so I think that for me was very important. So the influence of working with them at the Martin Siegel with Martha Cornier, I don't know if you know who Martha was, who started the gosh, my brain. It's the first the through the first American Theater Institute, International Theater Institute, sorry. And and so it was more about they provided a framework and a bit of a paradigm for how to do theater. And what was nice, especially, is Roberta's and everybody else's idea of not being a parachute artist. I don't know if you've come across that concept, which is, it's like with relief work, you drop in, you do your American thing, because you're so wonderful, and then you leave
Right.
versus the ability to set up structures so like working with Fulbright at universities, having an influence and the idea of reciprocity, which was also very important to me. So does that all of that my 50 years of working in it sort of come out, to it. And I've made friends that I'm still in touch with from all over the world. And I see people who wouldn't have had their plays done anywhere else that I met either through the League of Professional Theater Women or Theater Without Borders. People like Diana and Saviano, all of these people I got to work with in various different roles. So it's been amazing. I tell people, if I would take a train and people go, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I do this theater. I was in Romania." "Oh my God, that's so glamorous." And I'm thinking like, yeah, like, have you ever been to, it's like, but it's been interesting. And I felt like I was able to make a contribution to the
That's so
world
lovely.
above and beyond just being a director. I'm mostly a director. So I guess, yes, it's been a big influence
That's so
in my
lovely.
life. Yeah. Does that make sense to you, all of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Okay.
wonderful. Um, so you mentioned that you worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different countries with a lot of different plays. Have
Mhm.
you ever worked with somebody who has been involved with Theater Without Borders and directly impacted by the work that you and the organization was doing?
Huh. I don't know. Um, I mean, I do think the fact that I brought them into I introduced them to Frank Henschker at the Martin Siegel Theater Center. I think, and then subsequently TWB did a lot of events there. I and eventually produced some stuff and did some articles and some books. And I mean, through Roberta and TWB, I got to know a bunch of young Romanian playwrights and brought them to the Martin Siegel, worked with them on a book, worked with the Czech Center, got myself a book published, got these new post-'89 playwrights from Eastern Europe published articles. So I hope it had an impact with them in extending their influence. Um, I've worked on plays about Cambodia. I've worked on plays about Nicaragua and Argentina and, trouble spots, some really bad things. And I do think that for some of those people, to have their work and their voices heard here was really important. Um, it was great being part of the La Mama events and a couple of other events. And I mean, I don't know exactly if what I did, I know I've gotten some letters, so I'm so glad you were here because I learned this, that, and the other thing. Being in Romania where they still had the old Russian system of education and teaching and yelling at their students and their actors. And I came in with, I don't yell at people, at least in rehearsal, I don't yell at people. Maybe during tech I yell. But other than that, and the fact that they brought in TW had a sort of philosophy of working with people that I hopefully brought to other places, and people go, oh my gosh, I don't have to be mean. I don't have to be this. I don't have to be an asshole, pardon my French, as a director or auteur or whatever. And I think in that sense, the influence and it's more like the philosophy and Gestalt that I think was more impactful than though I'm sure, I did some people's plays that were in TWB before I knew they were in TWB, so Katrine helped me get my theater company's Immigrants Theater Project into the library at the Library for the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center. So I think the important thing was the idea of mutual assistance for theater artists across borders,
Mhm.
without any judgment, helping people. I know people have come here and they posted on the Theater Without Borders website. I mean, I'm remembering 10 years ago. And yes, you can come here. I'd be happy, helping people, writing letters of recommendation, hooking people up in various cities. If
Mhm.
somebody's traveling and you know somebody in that country, I don't, I'm sure I did. I'm sorry, I don't remember specifically who, when it was. In a way, it was just sort of the way what you did. It
Mhm.
just, you did the way you interacted with people.
That's
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Um, let's see. So you mentioned that you kind of stopped working with Theater Without Borders and started getting more into your writing.
It was not Theater Without Borders, it was more theater.
Oh yes, yeah, in general.
Yeah, it was my own. I have my theater company, which we had an OB, Immigrants Theater Project. So we were around for almost 25 years and did over 200 plays and productions. But what ended up happening is when my husband got sick, and the way it was formed originally was more of like a one or two person show. And as things changed in the market and social media, I just couldn't keep it up any longer. So as I moved away from just theater in general, I mean, I kept, working if somebody needed something, help or a recommendation or things like that. I was perfectly willing. But since I was doing less theater, I was less involved. So I would say maybe that was about 11 years ago.
Mhm.
So it had nothing to do with Theater Without Borders at all. They were fine. It was more. And also, I think what was happening is Roberta stepped back from a lot of the organizational ability. I think we might have lost some momentum here in the United States because she was really the driving force in many ways. Lisa Schlesinger, who you might be talking to, because I didn't want to just dissolve my theater because we had a reputation. So she took over my company. So she's running it now. So, you know,
That's
so
wonderful.
yeah, it's again, it had nothing to do with them. It was me really more about me moving away from theater. And just as I got older and, physically didn't have the energy, I decided I wanted, it's sort of like, it's interesting because Roberta's painting and I'm writing science fiction. So it's just interesting how, you know, these things happen. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. This is kind of a broader question.
Mhm.
Where do you think that theater, I mean, sorry, the world would be if Theater Without Borders had never existed?
Well, I think a lot of people wouldn't have connected to each other. I think, like Diana Milosevic's group, I think they just wouldn't have had the opportunities. I think groups like Pussy Riot and Belarus Free Theater and Jenin Free Theater, I think what Theater Without Borders did was it opened up a more general awareness that theater is not an isolated event. I think that the traveling that all the members have done, a lot of them have been Fulbright specialists. Um, created networks of communication. I've brought them to my students who do, who are in theater or taking theater classes, to make connections and to understand that, I mean, Theater Without Borders has helped foster people. I don't know if you know Chantal Bilodeau and her artists and climate change thing. I mean, me traveling, La Mama. I mean, it's just, I think those networks just wouldn't exist. And I think that theater artists in countries where that might feel alone because of their political system or their economic system, I'm assuming, I don't know, there might be maybe a little less despair in the world because they have the sense that other people in other countries are paying attention to the work they do and care about the work they do. And you know,
Mhm.
I think that's what it fostered that's what it fostered. And even though it's not as vigorously organizing things, I think the people who were participated in it are continuing in whatever way they do to do socially relevant, important, creative, interesting art, whether it's theater or writing or painting or, climate issues. So I think, you know,
Yeah,
that's my feeling. I think these things, these networks and connections just wouldn't have existed
absolutely.
without theater without borders.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean, I really, really, really believe that. You know,
yeah,
so
absolutely. Um, let's see. Um, what would you say when Theater Without Borders was founded, were you kind of in touch with the needs that they responded to when they were developing?
I was not there. I didn't know about them till maybe 4 years into their existence, maybe 3 years. Um, so what is the question again?
Kind of, I was talking a lot with Roberta and Katrine about how they were responding to a lot of the needs that they saw in people in America to kind of understand different cultures and different types of theater,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
also the need for people across zones of conflict to be able to connect. Were you aware of any of these types of needs that Theater Without Borders responded to?
Yes, I knew the international stuff. I do think my big contribution to them is to understanding the theater and diversity of theater in this country and the artists who are here for whatever reason doing theater. I think I think that was just something that was because their focus was mostly international. I said, well, international is here also. So I think that was my big contribution to it. I knew there was theater out there because I had been working with Nicaraguans and I was in Nicaragua, after the fall of Somoza. And I knew a lot about theater in Latin America because I was working with a lot of Latino theater artists. And so I knew about that, but I didn't know that there was, until I met Roberta and Daniel and, Katrine. I mean, I knew Katrine from the Women's Project, so it's not like I didn't know Katrine and her work. And I had done one of her plays about her grandmother, who was from a French woman from Algeria. So I knew her that way. But I think it wasn't till they did the big event at La Mama that I became more intensely involved. And I would say I was a core member, if that's what they're
Mhm.
called. And that I was, actively participating in the website. I was actively participating in international festivals and bringing people I knew from other countries into the theater with a lot of the Romanians came through me, so into Theater Without Borders. So, I mean, that's my experience with them. I was not there at the defining moment of its birth
Yeah,
because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, that makes
I
sense.
don't think they knew about me and I didn't know about them, so it was sort of interesting, though we crossed spheres in many places.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you so much for meeting with me.
Okay, and can I ask you a question?
Of course, yeah.
What brings you to this topic and this subject, and why are you
To
doing all this and talking to us all and
um,
thinking about it?
I'm a student at Bennington College, and every year, after every 2 semesters, we have to do a fieldwork term in some shape or form for our area of study. And I'm going into acting and creative writing.
Hmm.
And I saw Theater Without Borders, and it kind of not only is it a kind of it's not a theater company, but it's involved with theater. It
Hmm.
also aligned a lot with my worldviews and kind of connecting people from all over the world through a shared passion.
Hmm.
And I've
Hmm.
always been fascinated by that, and I've always wanted to involve myself with it. So yeah, it just fit.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, good. Good, good. Bennington is beautiful up there. Yeah, yeah.
it really is.
The
Yeah.
actor I was talking about actually went to Bennington. He met Roberta
Oh
at
wow.
Bennington. John Boyd. Yeah, 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 yeah. Some theater people. Way back in, ancient history. Yeah, yeah. I have a couple of friends who've gone there for music and theater and things
Yeah,
like that.
it's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good for music too. Yeah.
yeah. Well, let me know, if you have, I mean, I'm sure the people said I would love to read whatever you write and whatever you put
Okay.
together.
Thank you so
You
much.
don't forget about us. We're retiring and hopefully you can get more involved with Theater Without Borders if it's something that seems to,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
you know.
Yeah,
Thank you so
of
much
course.
for
Thank you.
talking and good luck. And let me know if you have any other questions or
Thank you so much.
clarifications or whatever. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of evening. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, have a
Okay.
lovely evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.